The priest stops the wedding. When the priest noticed something strange, then a man from the past stood up, and everything changed in an instant. The truth shattered the moment. The groom's heart broke, and in front of a stunned crowd, she made the hardest decision of her life. What happens when love isn't what it seems? When a wedding turns into a life-changing realization? Watch till the end to see how one choice changed everything. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories. Wedding meant to be the happiest day of two people's lives turns into a moment of pure shock for everyone in attendance. The bride, standing at the altar, looking radiant in her flowing white gown, grips the groom's hands with a trembling touch. The church is silent save for the hushed murmurs of guests who feel something is off, but can't quite place why. The priest, a man with decades of experience officiating weddings, suddenly furrows his brows, his voice, steady and calm just moments before, falters ever so slightly as his gaze lingers on the bride. Something isn't right. The air grows heavy. The guests shift in their seats, sensing the tension but unsure of its source. The groom, oblivious to the priest's hesitation, squeezes the bride's hand gently, offering her a reassuring smile, but she doesn't smile back. Her lips pressed together, her eyes darting slightly toward the doors at the back of the church, as if she's expecting something or someone. The priest takes a deep breath, clearing his throat, his mind racing. In all his years, he has never stopped a wedding. But now, with a sinking feeling in his gut, he realizes he might have no choice. Then, just as he opens his mouth to speak, the grand doors of the church burst open with a force that sends a collective gasp rippling through the crowd. Every head turns, every breath is held, and in that moment, everything changes. A gust of cold air rushes in as the heavy wooden doors swing open, the sound echoing through the church like a thunderclap. The bride flinches, the groom turns, his brow furrowing in confusion. Guests whisper among themselves, craning their necks to see who has just arrived so dramatically. And then, silence. A man stands in the doorway, breathing heavily, his face flushed with urgency. He's dressed in a suit, but it's slightly wrinkled, as if he threw it on in a hurry. His eyes lock onto the bride, and for a moment, no one moves. The tension is unbearable, thick enough to choke on. The priest, still holding the Bible in his hands, exhales slowly. He knows now he wasn't imagining things. Something is very, very wrong. The bride's grip tightens on the groom's hands. She's shaking, not with joy, not with excitement, but with something deeper. Fear, guilt. The groom looks between her and the man in the doorway, his jaw tightening. "Who is that?" he asks, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the murmurs around them. The bride doesn't answer. Her lips part as if she wants to say something, but no words come out. Her eyes are wide, her breathing uneven. Then the man in the doorway speaks. His voice is raw, filled with emotion. "You can't do this," he says. His words are quiet, but they land like a bomb in the middle of the room. The guests gasp. The groom stiffens. The priest takes a small step back, his grip tightening on the podium. The bride finally finds her voice, but is barely above a whisper. "Please, not here." The groom looks at her now, really looks at her. The way her shoulders are hunched like she's carrying something unbearable, the way she won't meet his eyes. His stomach twists. He's known her for years, spent countless nights planning a future with her, but in this moment, she feels like a stranger. The man in the doorway takes a step forward, then another. He's not here to cause a scene. He's here because he has no other choice. His voice shakes, but there's an undeniable truth in it. You don't love him. Gasps ripple through the church. The bride lets out a quiet sob, her shoulders shaking, as she finally lifts her gaze to meet his. And in that instant, the groom knows. The truth isn't just in her eyes, it's in the way her entire body reacts to this man, the way her breath catches, the way her hands tremble, the way she looks at him as if he's the only real thing in the world. The priest, watching everything unfold, slowly closes his Bible. He's seen love. He's seen commitment. He's seen cold feet. But this is something else entirely. He glances at the groom whose face has gone pale, his fingers still laced with the bride's. The poor man doesn't deserve this. No one does. A single tear slips down the bride's cheek. I never meant for this to happen, she whispers, but it has. And now there's no turning back. The groom's hands slowly slip from hers. His face is unreadable, but the hurt in his eyes is impossible to miss. He swallows hard, glancing between her and the man who just shattered his world. His jaw clenches like he's trying to hold something back, something breaking inside him. So it's true, he finally says, his voice low, almost hollow. The bride shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted to hurt you. Her voice cracks as she covers her mouth with her hands as a sob escapes. The weight of the moment is crushing her, crushing everyone in the room. The guests are stunned, whispering among themselves, watching a love story crumble in real time. The man in the doorway steps forward again, his fists clench at his sides. I tried to stay away, he says, his voice thick with emotion. I told myself this was your choice, that I had no right to interfere. But I can't stand here and let you go through with this when I know you don't love him. The groom's face twists, pain flashing through his expression before he forces it down. And you do? His voice is sharp now, cutting through the air like a knife. You love her so much that you wait until her wedding day to say something? His voice rises, frustration bleeding into heartbreak. Do you have any idea what this feels like? The bride lets out another broken sob, her hands trembling. She turns to the groom, desperate. I loved you. She stops herself, realizing the truth as the words leave her mouth. She did love him. But not like this, not the way she should, not the way she loves the man standing just feet away, the one she was never supposed to love in the first place. The room is silent again, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on everyone. The priest, who has been watching with a heavy heart, finally exhales and takes a step forward. His voice is calm but firm. Marriage is built on truth. If there is even a shadow of doubt in your heart, now is the time to face it. The bride squeezes her eyes shut. She knows what she has to do, but it feels impossible. She turns to the groom, looking at the man who has given her nothing but kindness, who deserves a love that is whole, not one that is split between two hearts. Her lip trembles. I'm so sorry. The groom stares at her for a long time. Then he lets out a shaky breath and nods. Just once. The smallest movement, but it carries the weight of 1,000 emotions. Yeah, he says, his voice barely above a whisper, me too. His hands drop to his sides, his shoulders slump, and for the first time, he looks truly lost. The bride's heart aches for him, but she knows staying would only hurt him more. And then, without another word, the groom turns and walks away, not just from the altar, from her, from everything. The bride feels like she can't breathe. She watches him go, feeling both relief and devastation all at once. Then slowly she turns back toward the man who stopped it all. He's watching her, waiting, his expression filled with something she's been searching for her entire life. She steps forward just once. And this time when she reaches for someone's hands, she doesn't hesitate. The warmth of his hands is immediate, steady, familiar in a way that makes her chest tighten. For the first time since she stepped into this church, she doesn't feel like she's drowning. She doesn't feel like she's forcing herself to be someone she's not. She lets out a shaky breath, blinking away the last of her tears as she looks up at him. He's searching her face, like he still can't believe she's standing here, that she chose him. A hush has fallen over the church. No one dares to speak, as if the entire room is holding its breath, waiting for what comes next. The priest is watching, his expression unreadable. The groom is gone, and with him, the life she almost walked into. A life built on good intentions, but not on the right kind of love. The man who stopped the wedding swallows hard, his grip on her hands tightening. Are you sure? His voice is rough, almost afraid to hope. Because if you're not, I'll walk away right now, I swear. She shakes her head immediately. No, she whispers. I'm done pretending. His shoulders drop, relief washing over his face. He pulls her into his arms, holding her like he's afraid she'll disappear if he lets go. And for the first time in what feels like forever, she lets herself fall into him completely. A few murmurs ripple through the crowd, but she doesn't care. The weight that had been crushing her is gone. She finally understands what people mean when they say love shouldn't feel like a battle, like something you have to force into place. The priest clears his throat gently. It seems there won't be a wedding today. A few guests awkwardly shift in their seats, some looking stunned, others whispering behind their hands. Her parents, still frozen in place, don't say a word. She knows there will be consequences, that she will have to face them later. But right now, in this moment, she doesn't regret a thing. She looks up at him, a small, hesitant smile breaking through the sadness still lingering in her eyes. What now? She asks softly. He lets out a breathless laugh, shaking his head. I have no idea. And maybe that's okay. Maybe, for the first time, not knowing is exactly what she needs. A strange sort of silence settles over the church, the weight of what just happened hanging in the air. People are still staring, some in shock, some with barely hidden curiosity. The whispers haven't stopped, but she tunes them out. None of it matters anymore. She feels his finger tighten slightly around hers, a silent reassurance. The warmth of his touch grounds her, makes her feel like she's standing on solid ground after years of stumbling through something that never quite fit. She exhales, glancing toward the doors where the groom disappeared just moments ago. A pang of guilt lingers, but she knows she did the right thing. It would have been cruel to stay, to let him keep believing in something that was never real. A woman in the second row shifts in her seat, shaking her head before muttering under her breath, "Unbelievable." Others glance at each other, unsure whether to stay or leave. The weight of judgment is thick, but she forces herself to stand tall. For the first time, she's not running from the truth. Her mother is still frozen in her seat, lips pressed into a tight line. Her father, arms crossed, looks more exhausted than angry. Neither of them move. Neither of them say a word. Maybe they're waiting for her to break, to second guess herself and go crawling back, but she won't. He leans in slightly, his voice low, so only she can hear. Do you want to get out of here? She lets out a breathless laugh, wiping the last of her tears away. God, yes. Without hesitation, he leads her down the aisle. Each step forward feels like shedding something heavy, like breaking free from a life that was never truly hers. The murmurs grow louder as they pass, but she doesn't stop. The moment they step outside, the crisp air hits her skin, fresh and sharp. She closes her eyes for a second, breathing it in, letting it wash over her. When she opens them, he's watching her carefully, like he's waiting for her to say she made a mistake, that she regrets this. But she doesn't. She looks at him, really looks at him, and a slow smile tugs at her lips. So, she says, her voice lighter than it's been in months, maybe years. Where to? He grins, shaking his head. Anywhere but here. And with that, they walk away, leaving behind everything that was never meant for them.